Dear Daniel, dear Xenia, dear Marcos, thank you very much for inviting me to have this talk in my old space. It's a real honor to be back on the way. And I'm very happy to be here. It's quite strange. I'd just like to introduce ourselves. Most people, they know me because I have my gallery more than 20 years in the space next to it. And had a successful gallery, stopped a couple of years ago. I'm doing other things today. And Daniel, perhaps you could say something about yourself, introduce yourself, briefly, short.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Mullen and I'm a Scottish born artist, and I grew up there, and after some time I moved to the States for a year, and after that I went to the Netherlands and studied art at the Rietveld Academy, where Bob also studied. So we have but different departments, but jewellery, and I did fine art, and there was a few years in between when we were at the academy. And since then, I'm based now in Rotterdam, and that's where I work from. And this show was actually, there was a variation of this show that was installed at the middle of February, and this is the second iteration of the show, and it will go on till the end of July.
So now I'd like to ask you, and we discuss a bit about the work of Daniel. We move from painting to painting. We'll not say we're going to explain you every painting, but if I look at your paintings, for me, your work is very transparent, but it's unusual on the other hand also that you paint on raw canvas. Is there an idea behind? Is that calculated? Is it, or was it by accident that it happened like this?
So it actually started around my graduation thesis, which was based on the question of what is emptiness, and what's emptiness, how do you depict emptiness? And when I was doing some research into the philosophy around the concept of emptiness and nothingness, I came across Sartre's thinking on it, that nothingness was actually a positive state of being, and in Eastern philosophy, emptiness is considered to be a positive state of being. And so when I would be stretching up a nice, pristine white canvas, I would feel that I had to paint it all in. And by painting it all in, I was actually getting rid of the feeling of nothingness in the work. And when I saw raw linen as also a possibility to work on, I actually felt that as a positive experience of emptiness. So in a way, the idea that it is nothing and something at the same time for me was kind of a concept of like, okay, I'm having a relationship with the work and not trying to dominate it with something. So that also helped enter the translucent layers in the work. Yeah.
But there's no horizon in your paintings.
Yeah.
And for me, they look also very psychedelic.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you, do you paint them and you take LSD, you know? But you never tried, either me, but and there's no perspective in it. And it's constructed, sometimes you have the feeling there's architecture in. Are you influenced by architecture?
Yeah, so architecture's played a large role in the work, but it's also coming back to emptiness. It's about a way of creating a framework for an experience, and architecture is a great way to do that. Like we're surrounded by architecture, this building, everything is created to have a context in order to experience something. So for me, architecture was a way to actually give context to the use of color, the depth, and a way to move through the work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see that. But if let's move to this painting here, because I see also in the talks we had, I see film also in your works, like we all probably know the film 2001 Odyssey, flying through the space.
Galactic.
And, galactic. There's no perspective, there's no end. It goes also in actually all your paintings. There is a deepness in, which is absolutely fascinating. It's like the film. You watch films for inspiration?
Not for direct inspiration, but the films of like the late 70s and 80s, they were actually quite an inspiration in the sense of the way that the film was constructed. It wasn't like CGI, right? It wasn't this perfect rendering of a reality, but it was constructed. Everything was, you could still see as a viewer, you could see the construction of these fantasy worlds or the space. And I find that very interesting as a way to, as an entrance into making work and also creating spaces where it's like, we all know what that this isn't something real, but we're also at the same time, because of its handcraftedness, we're also open to to entering the work. And so for me, that's really actually an important aspect.
Mm-hmm. But I see like this unknown galaxy and also this unknown, you don't know where to start, where to end in your work. And you could ask, where does the universe end? Is there an end?
Yeah.
And I see that in your, especially also in the deepness in your work, in all the works actually.
Yeah. As you look around, you'll probably notice that most of the works are centralized on the canvas. In a way, it's like creating this relationship between internal and external. So in external world of the emptiness of the canvas, and then the internal world of what's happening right inside. And I'm always busy with those two juxtapositions, actually.
But is it also like the deepness, has it also to do with like the ocean, or and also the color? You know, you have very often you use blue and also green, and of course it's association with the sea. Is this something you look at?
So like, I mean, there's that film Le Grand Bleu.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's like a great example of that, right? So the color comes into the work, and the reference or the where that color comes from, that's like over the board. That comes from over tons of different places. But often I'm drawn actually to these primaries somehow, these blues, reds, and yellows, and then the overlaps in that where you get the greens and the colors over there. So, yeah.
But as you said, now you draw, but you're not making real drawings, sketches.
No, I'm a terrible drawer. I really suck. Like, if you look at my drawings, they're just a complete and utter mess. I mean, if you're someone like Frank Gehry, that's okay, you get away with it, but like, I'm never going to show my drawings. But for me, the drawing is just a means to an end. It's a way to get the idea out there enough that when I go to the canvas, I'm actually able to construct the system that I need to make the work. It's all about systems.
If I look at this, it's incredible. It looks incredibly complicated.
Right.
Or does it look complicated, or is it also complicated?
So it's with this one, I got to say it is complicated. Like with the other ones, they're slightly simpler because it all depends on where you start from. I don't want to get too technical about this, but with this one, I first drew a circle here. And then I divided that circle up into all these layers behind there. There's like a 1 centimeter gap. And then I drew this oval here. But then, so what I had to do is I had to project these lines out to the oval. But then, in order to do that, you also have to divide it systematically. And I actually didn't know how to do that. So a friend's brother works on the London Stock Exchange. And he made me an Excel sheet. to work out the mathematical progression that's needed for the spacing between them all to get it to the size that I actually wanted. So that's more complicated than what normally happens. If I'd, for example, drawn this circle first, divided this up, and then used that to calculate the backside, it would have been much easier. But like sometimes I work back to front or front to back.
That's why I asked it in front of this painting, because you can see it. But the ovals, like you told me, you created a machine to make this fantastic ovals, which is almost impossible to draw an oval.
It gets really complicated. But with this ellipsis tool, you basically have two axes, and with a normal protractor, you've got one axis, and everything moves around that axis. Okay. But when you have two axes, they move, and then you can change the diameter of the oval. Let's move to another one.
If I read all this text of you, there are quite a few, then you mentioned several artists like Frank, Stella, who else was it?
Solowit,
exactly, we talked about Solowit. For me, the paintings are also very sculptural, and I think it goes probably also, or you are thinking about to go more three-dimensional.
When I'm making this work, I'm thinking in 3 dimensions in order, and even though I render it in, let's say, a one-dimensional, it's still, in my head, it's 3-dimensional. So this work for here, for example, this is like, I guess, a pivotal work, well, not a pivotal, but an important work for making a step to thinking about leaving the canvas behind and seeing how this would work not in 3 dimensions, because what's really important for me is that the 3rd dimension of experience is actually the viewer's internal experience. So in a way, what I call these, in a way, sculptures of the mind, if you know what I mean.
Which is a very nice title.
So I want to move into like more object form, but I still want them to be sculptures of the mind, so 2-dimensional.
Well, you worked with the Brazilian gallery, and in Brazil, concrete art was super important. It started in the 50s, but one of the most influential person there was a Swiss, Max Bill, who is from this town. So. Did you look at all these concrete artists? Well, because we have here Camille Gräser, Verena Löwensberg, Lose, Bill, Hinterreiter, all these artists. Is it for you something like also an honor to show in a town with a Brazilian gallery and now in this town where all these concrete artists come from?
Yeah, exactly. No, there's a deep-rooted history here, also with Johannes Itten and color theory. So yeah, I'm aware, and I saw an amazing exhibition today actually by a Hungarian artist, Dora Moira. I was blown away by it, and she also fits into that concrete movement.
So you feel close to them?
But still far away.
Yeah, of course.
Another galaxy, but very close as well.
Well, I see the influences in your work. Thank you very much for this short, nice talk.
Thank you.
And congratulations. Thank you, Xenia, Marcos.